everyone who wants to build a company that works on its own, have a baby, and then you'll be fine, right? That's.
Are you ready? All right. Hi there, I'm Nora Dunn, and welcome to my interview series where I speak with ordinary people who have extraordinary remote careers and travel lifestyles. As usual, I always appreciate a thumbs up, and please leave a comment if you're inspired. Both of those actions help get this interview series in front of other people who might be interested in learning from the people that I speak with. If you're interested in long-term travel, there is a link in the description for a free checklist of 10 crucial things that you must do before you travel long-term. And by downloading this checklist, you will also get on an exclusive list of notifications when new videos come out, which currently is bi-weekly. Now, my guest today is Beth Santos, founder and CEO of Wanderful, which is a global community and lifestyle brand that specializes in helping all women travel the world. It's 45,000 people strong. It has local chapters in 50 cities, global summits, and small group trips. In 2014, Wanderful launched WITS, WITS. It's the Women in Travel Summit. It's for women and gender diverse travel creators and industry members. I was lucky enough to speak at this event in Latvia in 2019, and it's a fabulous event. Pandemics notwithstanding, WITS is held twice a year on 2 continents. WITS is listed by Forbes as one of the top inspiring events for women to attend. And next year will be the inaugural Wanderfest, which is the first major outdoor festival for women travelers. Now, Beth is more than just wonderful. She's a Tory Burch Fellow. She's a Zell Fellow. She was named a top 100 travel blogger in the USA, and she was invited to the White House under the Obama administration. She's also the co-founder of #AtTheTable, which is a national movement to support female founders. Today, Beth is an acclaimed thought leader, consultant, keynote speaker. She's collaborated with TripAdvisor and the Girl Scouts, the Travel Adventure Show, and more. She's a graduate of the Kellogg School of Management and Wellesley College, and she lives in Boston with her husband and 2 girls, one of whom is very new to this world. So I am very lucky to have cornered Beth for this interview. Beth, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Nora. It's great to be here.
This is fabulous. I have so many things to talk to you about. I actually had to limit myself, but because you've done so much. You've done so much, and you were repeatedly recognized as a change maker in the travel industry. And in fact, on your website in bold letters is, you are not just making travel easier for women, you're changing the entire way the travel industry operates. What does that mean?
Well, you know, when I first started Wanderful, I was doing a lot of travel on my own. I was living abroad, and just realized how little information there is out there supporting women. And I think that was really the first thing to kick it off is if you look up women in travel online, you're going to find one of 2 narratives. One is what I like to call the eat, pray, love narrative, which is like this, you know, magical unicorn adventure that you're going to go on where you're going to like eat lots of delicious food and meet some gorgeous Brazilian man and like ride off into the sunset. And then the other narrative is what I've started to call the taken narrative, which is when you get abducted by somebody and your family never finds you again. And Liam Neeson has to come looking for you. And
if we should be so lucky.
If we should be so lucky, right. In fact, that sounds pretty good. But that's the thing is that there is so much that encompasses a woman's experience abroad beyond just that. And that's where Wanderful had started, was creating a space where we could really answer real questions about cultural norms, you know, cross-culturally, you know, when going from one country to another, or gender expectations, or maternity, or, you know, how to dress appropriately. But the thing about that is that on this journey, one thing that I realized is that what we don't want to do is have the instructions be only for women traveling, right? The solution to helping women travel the world is not just saying, here, let me give you some extra pepper spray and you can go on your way. It's also looking at what are some of the systemic issues in the travel industry that are keeping women from getting that representation and feeling that confidence. And a lot of it lies in the fact that women are actually a huge part of the travel industry in terms of decision-making. Consumers make 80% of travel decisions, if not more. But if you look at leadership, it is still very male and very white. And because of that, the real experiences of women are not represented. And so, in addition to helping women travel the world, something that we really focus on is upending the industry, supporting some of these grassroots voices that are coming from content creators and influencers, helping them speak meaningfully to their audiences, equipping them with the tools, and really fighting back and saying we need better representation in the industry itself.
Wow, that's fabulous. And you've been working at this for quite some time now. Do you have any, are there any measurable objectives that you've been able to achieve to this end?
Well, I think, the objectives have changed, honestly, from the beginning of when we started to now. At first it was just how many women can we reach? And the goal has always been to create a space where women can find each other wherever we go around the world. And so that's kind of the, number of women in our community, number of, I was going to say sisters, number of cities that we're activating, and certainly hitting that 45,000 and hitting 50 chapters around the world. That has been really phenomenal for us. I think our goal is to be in a place where you can show up in any airport and have instant access to somebody who can in real time help you out, right? It's not just reading an article about a place. It's being able to connect with somebody live and have her meet up with you for a cup of coffee or host you in her home, or, support her in that way. But I think in terms of other metrics, looking at the changing industry, I mean, we're certainly looking at representation of women in leadership. We're looking at the growth of content creators and how much they're actually being worked with, what brands are focusing on collaborating with them. And those are things that, it's a long journey ahead for us to get to a point where we're feeling real equity and parity.
As you were speaking, I've been a member of the Wanderful community for a few years now, so I know there's a lot happening all the time. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of different things, like you were talking about being able to show up in an airport and meet somebody anywhere in the world. So this is a new arm of Wanderful, which is the kind of a cultural exchange, couch surfing, home exchange arm. That's fairly new. Talking about travel content creators, of course, WITS is for that. Talking about connecting women, that's Wanderful. Wanderfest.
Yep.
So you've definitely already got various arms of Wanderful that are attacking all of these elements of the travel industry and making and helping women be heard in this. Is there? I mean, like, that's enough. Okay, don't take this next.
But
question
is there more?
Is there more? Do you have, like, is there an ultimate vision? Do you have a checklist of things that you're doing, or does this develop organically as you see opportunities?
It's interesting. So I promise this is going to go to the answer that you're looking for. When I got my MBA in 2016, and it was focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. And so I have a very clear knowledge of the startup ecosystem, in addition to having started Wanderful before that. And one thing that's really interesting about how startups nowadays are created is that there is a very clear sort of problem solution oriented framework. It's identify a problem in the world and then create a solution for that. And that's what your business is. But Wanderful never started that way. The problem, we didn't necessarily say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm really hot wearing my long sleeve t-shirt. What if I cut the sleeves off and make it a short sleeve shirt? Problem solved. What I had realized was I had felt really an emptiness and a lack of connection and a lack of support. And it was in that I started building a community. And because of that, we were much more centered on bringing together a like-minded group of people, or I like to say different-minded group of people with similar problems, and to give them access to each other, to help each other. And it's actually created a space where Wanderful has been ever evolving, because there isn't one clear problem. It's not like our goal is to make, it so that 100% of women around the world travel. That's not necessarily it, but it's about bringing together a community of people who are all feeling these similar feelings of sometimes loneliness, sometimes incredible feelings of being travelers. These are people who are thinking about traveling for the first time, or people who are very experienced in traveling, but all of us have had that experience of being out in the world and feeling like you're changing, and giving them access to one another to help each other. And so I think, the whole development of Wanderful has been leaning into that community and seeing what are some of the, now that we have this network, the unique problems that they're experiencing, and how can the different things that Wanderful creates solve that? So that's where WITS comes in, and elevating the voices of content creators and helping them get more partnerships, more work. That's where our global hosting network has come in, where it's helping women to have safe places that they can trust when they're traveling by themselves, so that they're not feeling like they're completely alone. And so each of the things that Wanderful builds solves a problem of its own. But the whole concept of our community is, let's bring everyone together to give them that second home, especially for people who feel like their home is everywhere, and give them a space where they can voice these concerns, that we can innovate solutions for them.
I'm really grateful for this conversation on a variety of levels. And I must confess that even when I attended and spoke at WITS, I kept thinking, why is she just focusing on content creators? Like, why? This is about women in travel. I now understand that if you start with the people who have the influence, then that has a ripple effect that goes very far. And I now have a greater appreciation for the Women in Travel Summit. And I'm also very grateful that Wanderfest is now on the radar, because that is for all women who are enthusiastic about travel, not just content creators. And I'm curious, I obviously understand the inspiration, but what perhaps was the impetus to develop this outdoor festival?
Yeah, a little bit of a backwards integration, right? And that's always been an interesting point. There are people are like, oh, Wanderful is a community of content creators. Actually, maybe only 30% of our audience is content creators. But what's interesting is that we've really kind of fused these two communities together. We have a whole membership program where half the membership side is for travelers, half of them is for creators. And we've created our own little ecosystem where now the creators are sharing their content with the travelers. The travelers are using that content when they're going somewhere, and it's really special. But as you said, WITS was our first event. And for a travel-focused community's first event to be about content creators, it's a little bit like, why? And I think that's to your point, that's kind of really where it started, was let's activate the creators who can speak to their audiences. And now we're taking it that extra level, reaching more people faster. But at the same time, I think it was just over the years, literally every year of WITS, we'll have people who will come and they'll say, I'm not a content creator. I just love to travel, and I want to be surrounded by other women who love to travel. And that's why I'm here. And I think hearing that enough times, we realized, there really isn't a lot out there that's just connecting women travelers together. And I think it took us a little bit of time to just, get our bearings in terms of event planning, to feel the confidence of doing this, because it is such a bigger market segment, right? WITS is a 500-person event. That's already a big event, but Wanderfest is reaching a way bigger audience and has the potential to really, really grow. And so I think we wanted to kind of get our sea legs, figure out how to host a really good event. We're really strong operators on the Wanderful team. We like to host well-organized things. And it was just time. And I think we had launched Wanderfest before the pandemic, but we moved it. And in a lot of ways, there's a little bit of a silver lining there, because now that we're sharing Wanderfest now, which is happening in 2022, people are so itching to travel. They just want to have plans and go somewhere. And in that way, it feels really exciting that Wanderfest is going to be this opportunity for a lot of people, their first trips at all, ever. And it's going to be with this sisterhood that we'll be able to create for them, where we're just in a mode of celebration. And so I think it's just the right time for this. I think more and more women are traveling alone. I think it's going to even increase after the pandemic, because people are going to say, I'm not going to wait for my partner. I'm just going to go on that trip I've always wanted to go on. Now we can give you the chance to go travel solo, but travel to a place where there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of other people there to support you. And I would like to think that this is going to be something that we do every year, possibly in the same location. So it just feels like a coming home again and again and again.
That's awesome. I'm just envisioning Woodstock for women. It's going to be fabulous.
Okay. That I definitely, when I first had the idea, I was like, it's going to be like Burning Man, but without drugs.
There you go. Excellent. Yeah,
So just think of it like that.
There's going to be so many opportunities for creativity and collaboration and meeting people, and I'm really excited for it. So
great speakers. We're looking at having like a chalk mural demonstration by a local woman artist. Just everything under the sun. It's going to be so much fun.
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous. All right, I want to shift gears a little bit, because not only are you championing all kinds of movements and whatnot to support women in travel, but you've also become a very strong voice against racism. And you've founded a number of initiatives to help that, both in the travel sphere and out of it. And I'm curious, please share with me some of the things that you've done to take a stand against racism.
Yeah. So, and that's where the word all comes from when you talk about Wanderful being for helping all women travel the world. I think our team has always had a very strong social justice focus in terms of the background of the people on our team. And so I hand it to them, actually, that this kind of came up very organically with our team years ago, to make sure that whenever we're gathering for WITS, for example, we're talking about things like diversity in content campaigns and, how to present an authentic picture of your destination when your destination is inherently very homogenous and very white, and these topics that are not usually given the spotlight at a lot of travel events. I feel that we were one of the first to really bring these onto the main stage. And that was noticeable. And I think when we started getting really positive feedback from our community, we realized that this was something that was missing in the travel world, is this understanding of representation and being focused on women. I think we were already speaking the language of representation. And I think slowly started to realize that oftentimes when we talk about women in travel, we talk about white women in travel, and intersectionality is completely ignored. And so I think it really started with WITS that we started to lean in a little bit more. And then certainly with the murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and everything that was happening in 2020, we kind of looked at a team and we're sort of waiting for the travel industry to respond and to see, what was being done about it. And the travel industry on a whole was pretty quiet. And if you take a step back, you have to think about what was going on in travel in 2020. It had stopped.
Which was
the
nothing,
industry
yes.
had exploded. And not only that, but everybody who was in a position to respond to Black Lives Matter was furloughed. So we have a place where the people who are supposed to be speaking out are not actually working right now. And so the travel industry is taking this position of silence, which is a position. And I think that was when we sort of realized, okay, we need to bring this dialogue to the front lines right now, because travel is very relevant in this space. Travel is inherently a political act. Travel is inherently an act of learning about other people and other cultures. And how can we be so dedicated to learning about other cultures if we're having these issues happen right in our front yards? And so that's when we started an event series called Moving Forward, an anti-racism town hall in the travel industry. It was a 3-part series that we launched in, I think June was our first one. And the idea was, let's bring everybody, members of the industry, content creators, and travelers all together to talk about what's going on here and what are our responsibilities to change that. And I use responsibility very heavily because I think that it's easy to say, okay, this isn't the industry's problem. They need to, include more voices of color in their marketing campaigns, or, hire more people on their boards or whatever. But also they were in a place where they were not doing any hiring because they had completely stopped. So what do? But then also on the travel side, travel is also one of the spaces where travelers have a large amount of buying power. This isn't something where you're buying, some toothpaste every few months and your buying power is a couple dollars. This is every time you take a trip, you're spending thousands of dollars on this industry. And because of that, each individual traveler has so much power to vote with their dollar to make the industry what they want it to be and make travel what they want it to be. And so we all have responsibilities as travelers, as content creators who are speaking to these travelers, as members of the industry, to say, what do we want from travel moving forward? And how can we make sure that it's safe, that it's accessible, that it's inclusive to all of us? And what does that mean? And I mean, we can have a whole other podcast talking about exactly what that means, and, travel's origins, and the fact that, when we think of a traveler, we often think of a 21-year-old white guy and what that means for the rest of us. But there's a lot to really be upended in travel.
And have you seen any specific outcomes come out of your town halls and raising this awareness?
Yeah, actually we have. So a lot of the travel brands that came, they came from a position of, I don't really know what to do right now. And I know that sounds, for people who are kind of like, well, obviously there's so much to do, but when you look at it, when you really dissect it, the travel companies, these are large companies where each individual player might feel independently powerless. And, I don't know what I can do to make this company change their ways. And an example is a really large travel publication that we've actually been doing a lot of work with, where the editor has been saying, I want to, include more voices of color here. I can only do so much in my department. How can I activate to go outside my department and really challenge the executive board to make this a priority? And so it's been great in the sense where I think these town halls have just provided a little bit more guidance and ideas about how they can, their individual responsibility to actually speak up and say something, but then also how they can follow through and help with that. And we've had conversations, after that, to kind of help other companies get to that point. And so I'm definitely seeing that change, but it's still a slow change, because this is all about hiring people. This is about, adjusting how your brand talks about travel, talks about diversity and inclusion. Sometimes that means going in front of a board when a board only meets every 6 months or every year. And so it takes multiple years just to see a very small change happen. It's a lot easier for us little guys. And so I think just constantly having these conversations and making sure that we're getting into the minds of not just one person who works at a company, but everybody, so that they're all on the same page. We've definitely seen some movement. And of course, I have to give a shout out to the Black Travel Alliance and other organizations like them that have been saying, we want to see your numbers. They might not be good numbers. It's okay that you're starting from a bad place, as long as you're trying to improve that now. Use that kind of almost public shaming to say, we need to make a change and we need to do it now. And this isn't just about one person. This is about all of us getting on the same page. So yes, I think so. And I'm excited to see what comes out of it. But I think we've been very clear from the beginning that 1, 2, 3 events is not going to change everything. This has to be a daily commitment that you're making to yourself and to your business. That is part of your lifestyle. That is part of your life.
Absolutely. Well, and it's a juggernaut. Which is why, of course, we all need to keep at this. It's not just an isolated event that you can do in response to, some sort of racial attack or event that happens. No, this is, like you say, it's a lifestyle, and it seems like it's being definitely incorporated into the fold of what Wanderful represents as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's just such an important part of our blood. And, I've spoken to a couple of different groups about diversity and inclusion, and kind of what our efforts have been. I don't necessarily consider myself a D&I expert, but that's actually a really important part of this. Is people will say, Beth from Wanderful is going to talk about what Wanderful has done. Are we a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting company? No. If you need a consulting company, we can recommend some to you. But what we are is a, quote, I'm using air quotes for anyone listening to the podcast, a regular company that has made this commitment really strong. And every regular company should be making that commitment, and so I think that's something where people are like, oh, you've really gone into this diversity and inclusion thing. And I'm like, yeah, why haven't you? We all should be doing this. This is important for all of us. And so the fact that we're standing out, while I appreciate it, it's also like, okay, but why aren't you doing anything yet? Because this is even from a business perspective, this is the best business perspective. It's involving everybody. It's making all travelers feel included. It's valuing the dollar of all travelers. Why is that not the most important thing for us rather than just focusing on some?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's truly very inspirational, and definitely you are leading the way and helping other people find their voices around this as well. So
thanks, Nora. We're doing what we can over here. So, but we're always making mistakes. And I think that's important, to end my rant. Like that's important to keep in mind. And we talk about this as a team. I mentioned that a lot of them work in social justice. And so they're even better talking about this than I am. I think I'm still learning. But the really important thing is knowing that mistakes will be made by everybody, and knowing that if we are trying and we're working to get better, then that's the best that we can ask. And so for anyone who's thinking about how they can include this in their messaging, what it has to do with travel, first of all, I have whole blog posts that are about how anti-racism has to do with travel and, the whole story of that, but also, be okay with yourself and know that you're going to make mistakes. You will get shamed in every direction. Everyone's going to make mistakes. That's how we all learn. And that can't be a reason to not do it. Okay, Absolutely. Now I'm done. Now I'm really done.
Well, so you've actually inspired me. Speaking of teams, you founded Wanderful remotely. You manage remote teams around the world. This is, you were working remotely prior to the pandemic. So it probably wasn't that much of a pivot for you to have to go remote. So this would inherently make you an expert in remote work. So how is it that you've been able to manage these teams and start companies and really grow them entirely remotely?
It's funny because I guess now it's been so nice in a way that everybody else is working remotely, because I'm like, okay, now we're all on the same playing field. I don't have to pretend that I'm in an office when I'm actually in our guest bedroom, because we're all in our guest bedrooms right now, or our kitchens or wherever, and it's like given me a little bit more like, strength to do it. But yeah, I mean, I've certainly dreamt of having like a big, beautiful office one day with manicure Mondays. And, I've thought the whole thing, the whole way through it. But now
you have the Pinterest board.
Oh my gosh, I have the Pinterest board 100%. But now, I mean, we're kind of like, I don't think that's ever going to happen or need to happen. And it is actually kind of an important part of Wanderful's DNA, because by being a remote team, we are able to incorporate global voices onto our team easily. And also we're able to encourage our team members to travel whenever they want, as long as they're getting their work done. So I guess we've been kind of in that like unlimited vacation, remote work, kind of all these things that are kind of becoming trendy now. We've always done that because we're about travel. And if our team isn't traveling, they don't know what's going on, like they have to walk that talk. And but it's been great for us. And I think, it's just been a matter of, and actually I think that speaks to diversity and inclusion a little bit more too, is that, geography has never limited somebody from being able to be part of this. We have a whole mashup of people on our team, from people who work full-time with us, to people who are full-time freelancers and freelance with us, to people who have full-time jobs that are 9 to 5, but then still work for Wanderful on the side. And I think it's given us this really neat ability to incorporate all different voices and all different perspectives. And I think the way we've done it is just high communication. And honestly, I think culture is important. I spend a lot of time getting to know each individual person on our team, but also making sure that they get to know each other, because the last thing that you want is for everyone to feel like they're working with Beth and there are some other people as well. We have, even for people who are working with us as contractors, they are members of the Wanderful team. They participate in our team calls. Whenever I do something fun for the team, they're part of it, making sure that everybody feels like they're part of the family and that they can go to each other without using me, so that the whole machine can keep working. I think all of those things have been really essential. And I think just having flexibility and knowing that, sometimes there's going to be a baby or a dog or something barking in the background, and we're all doing it. And as long as we're getting the work done, that's all we can ask for, I think is really important to all this too. And kind of just getting rid of some of the like buttoned up part of working and running a company, and just saying, we are incorporating our real lives here. You might be at a pool in Nicaragua. I might be breastfeeding my daughter. The other person might be in the middle of a party in a corner trying to like get their work done because somebody took over the whole house and they have roommates, so in either way, I think it's just having that patience for each other.
So we're going to get to the baby bit in a bit. But before
she always
we do
finds
that,
her way in here.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. So you mentioned communication. That's obviously very, very important, is communication and inclusive communication. How specifically do you facilitate that?
A number of different ways. We have weekly team calls that we do on Google Hangout. Sometimes we have required video, well, not required, but like, I'm never going to force somebody to be on video, but we'll say, hey, let's go on video today so that we can all see each other, because that can be nice, especially when we have a new team member. Otherwise it's audio, but we'll do it once a week. We have a one-on-one call that I'll do with everyone on my team at various frequencies, depending on the team member. We use Slack. So we're always in Slack. We have fun channels, we have work channels, and we have Slack rules. We have, very specific rules about how you engage people in conversations, expectations on response times. So we'll say, if you're posting in Slack and somebody tags you, it doesn't mean that you have to respond right away. If you are relaxed, if it's your weekend, whatever it is, you do not need to respond. The reason the person is tagging you is because they are thinking of it in that moment. You should respond within 24 to 48 hours, or just let us know. So I think, boundaries and helping people to enforce those boundaries is really important. But what else do we do? All the fun remote work stuff, Google Docs. We have some like fun little activities that we'll do. Like we have all the Wanderful membership stuff our team is involved in. So when we do book club, I'll buy our team a copy of the book so they can participate. So, but yeah, in terms of communication, it's just a lot of cloud stuff and a lot of meetings, but also, and this is really important, is not letting those meetings run over. I am very, very strict about meetings. And I say, if I'm telling you it's going to be an hour, it will be an hour. If we hit that hour and we collectively decide we're going to keep going, that's okay. But I am never going to be one who's going to use up your time, because we all have limited amounts of time and we're going to get our stuff done in the time that we have, because I never want anybody to resent a meeting, because that's how we function, is those check-ins, getting things done, having that trust, working off of collaborative documents, and then regrouping every week to see what we've achieved.
There's two things that I want to underscore that you've said in this portion of the conversation. One of which is that because of the level of communication that you've fostered with the group, you've been able to take yourself out of some conversations that you needn't be a part of by encouraging your team members to collaborate amongst themselves. And I think that this is a very important element to managing a team and to being an entrepreneur. So that is definitely key. And is that something that you learned along the way, or is that something that you were taught in school?
No, I think I've always just been that way. And I think and I think, as a community builder, that's a really important part of just building a community, is giving them the tools to rely on each other and use each other. I think as an entrepreneur, it's absolutely important. And actually speaking of many things that I'm doing, I'm also launching a program called Prosperity Circles, which starts in June. Oh, don't worry, Nora, there's plenty more. And that's all. It's essentially like an accountability / learning group for people who are building lifestyle businesses that they want to continue on sustainably for a long period of time. And oftentimes those are digital. Oftentimes they have some sort of community component. And so I'm sort of teaching this in these circles as well. But it's, as an entrepreneur, your job is to create the machine and make the machine run. It is not to be responsible for every little thing. And if you are the one who's still doing the little day-to-day tasks, then you have not created a machine that can run on its own. So So you have to take yourself out of it. And I have to actively remind my team sometimes. They'll ask me something and I'll say, actually, can you go to Ariel with that question? Or can you go to Marissa with that question or whatever? Because I want them to know to count on each other and to just give me an FYI. And I think because of that, there's also needs to be that high level of trust that I'm hiring the right person to do the job. And I can trust that they're going to do it the way they should, that's going to move our company forward, because otherwise it's me having to review every little thing. And then again, I'm reeling myself back into the company when I shouldn't be there. So yeah, I think there's definitely like a strategic side to all of that, but then it creates that culture much better when they know that they can use each other and I don't have to be part of it. And in fact, and I'm sorry, I get on these monologues and then I just like get going.
It's all good.
But one of the things that really changed that for me was when I gave birth. Speaking of daughters, for the first time, when I had my first daughter, I had it during WITS. During our conference, I was not there. Don't worry, nobody freak out. But I had realized when I found out I was pregnant that my due date was basically the exact weekend as WITS. And I had to kind of have a reckoning with myself of, I realized that this baby I had created, the conference that I had created was going to have to go on without me. And I had, at that point, 8 months to prepare for it. And I had a real talk with the team and I said, I'm not going to be there. I will help you every step of the way going there, but I will not be there. And it forced me to promote people, to give them, more leeway, to trust that they were going to do the job because I was not going to be able to do it. And I think that was really the first time. And I, from there on, was like, this is actually great. I'm going to do more of this. And really creating a team that can run it itself.
This is testament to the saying that necessity is the mother of invention.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that was what a fabulous opportunity to force you to really implement those systems and put them in place. And it's done nothing but serve you since then.
Yes.
So
everyone who wants to build a company that works on its own, have a baby, and then you'll be fine. Right. That's
wow. All right. I'm getting to the baby bit.
Kidding.
I really am. I am getting there. But
you had a number two. Yes.
Yes, the number two that I wanted to underscore that you said, and this is really important going forward in terms of work culture, as far as I'm concerned, is that you do not expect your team members to respond immediately. Because I'm afraid actually that something is changing. First of all, technology and the ability to check emails at any time of day or night has turned us all pre-pandemic, turned us all into slightly workaholics and also started creating an expectation. If I send an email, I expect a response.
Yeah.
And now that everyone, or not everyone, but many people have had to work remotely, this has become even more of a problem. And I'll just a quick anecdote. A friend of mine whose job was made remote because of the pandemic, she got used to working from home and her hours changed. She was still accountable for the same tasks, but she spread them out through the day and the evening, which means her colleagues got accustomed to her responding to phone calls and emails day and night. And she was talking with me the other day. She was mentioning that she might start going back into the office as that ability happens. And she said, but the thing is, my team is going to have to get to understand that I'm only on the clock when I'm in the office.
Yep.
And when I leave the office, I've left the office. And I said, wow, that's going to be an adjustment for everyone who's used to you responding to their queries at 7:00 at night. Right. And I think that she's not the only one who's going to have this problem. So I'm very happy that you do say that, no, you have, create a realistic expectation, right? 24 to 48 hours response time.
Boundaries are so essential. And I honestly, I think I might have just set that standard because I take weekends off. Like, unless it's really, urgent, or I'm just really having fun, or I'm doing a special project or whatever, sometimes I'll respond to things, but the team pretty much knows I'm not working on the weekend. And because of that, they don't really work on the weekend unless unless that's kind of like the hours they've designated for themselves. And there are times that I will, I'll be up with the baby in the middle of the night and I'll post something. And then the next day, everyone will be like, why were you up at 4:30 doing work? You shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, but I feel great about that because that means the team feels confident enough to know that that will never be expected of them to be getting up early or staying up late. If they're feeling confident enough to be able to tell me to stop doing it, that culture has been enforced so strongly that they're not feeling that. And you have to keep reminding people, we'll get on calls and say, don't forget, just because you get tagged in something, we are not expecting you to respond. And I truly, truly believe that you fill the time you have with the work you have to do. If you have 2 hours of work, but you have 8 hours to do it, you will spend 8 hours doing that 2 hours of work. You just
100%.
fill time. And so,
Yep.
so I encourage people to like have other hobbies or do other things so that, and I think that's why I like to do a lot too, because I've realized that sometimes if I have less to do, I'll still spend a lot of time doing it. I won't. So enforcing those boundaries for yourself in whatever way, absolutely essential, and helping your team do that too.
Babies.
Speaking of boundaries, let's talk about something with no boundary.
Speaking of creating a post at 4:30 in the morning because you're breastfeeding, because you've already shared that the birth of your first child forced you to really create a solid infrastructure within Wanderful in order to be able to operate without you. I have a feeling that you've already partially answered the question or the level of confusion that I have, which is your second child is 2 months old. Now, in most circles, you will be on maternity leave. Instead, I feel, certainly from your online presence, I feel like you haven't even paused. And I'm just wondering, how do you balance it? Because anybody I know who's a new mother is sleepless. You look gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So how do you manage the remote work, being an entrepreneur, being a wife, and being a mother to 2 young children, one of whom is very, very young?
So there's a couple things that I think are really important to note here. The first important point is that there is help. It's not just me. I'm not a single mother. For single parents, I don't know how you do it. You're amazing. And by the way, I'm not referring to my husband as help because he is an equal part of this and responsibility. But we also, in addition to having him be at home unusually because of the pandemic, we also have my mother-in-law staying with us, which has been absolutely helpful. So we have 3 adults and 2 children at home. Now we're all at home and we're all completely stir crazy, but I want to set expectations about who is here, what that workload is like, and what we're able to do. Now, here's another thing. I actually wrote a blog post in maybe 2016, 2017, just as my daughter was before she was born and she was coming out, as being an entrepreneur, especially an entrepreneur of a women's focused organization. The rules are different than if I were working a 9 to 5 for somebody else going into an office. The rules are such that I get to create the rules. And if I'm on a call with somebody and I'm holding my daughter and she's crying, I don't care. I have work to do. You have work to do. You're going to deal with my screaming daughter in the background because we have a job to do and we're going to get it done. And I cannot underscore the importance of that because I see my husband on, calls at work where he has to have absolute silence because it is not socially acceptable for him to be able to do that, both as a man and as somebody who's working a 9 to 5, where I have the flexibility of saying, I'm with my team. They understand, I understand. I'm going to have that level of flexibility for them as they have for me. It is okay. We're managing this. And so those are 2 things I think that make this way of a different situation, and I would say easier situation than other people. But then on top of that, I think that there are innovations in multitasking. I think I don't ever want somebody to see what I'm doing and say, like, this is the expectation now and this is the way it should be. I love this work. I'm coming back because I want to, not because I feel like I have to or because the company is crumbling without me. I'm doing it because I like adult time, having like a 2-month-old. It's nice to be able to talk with other people. Right now, most of my work is actually just checking in with my team. I do very little things that require typing. I do a lot of just talking and strategizing. And I tell them many times, I'm like, that's what I want my role to be, is checking in with you, thinking about strategy, focusing on larger business development. And again, to the point of running a business that can operate on its own, I should not be the one who's sending out an email, or kind of like being the one to copyright it and that sort of thing. So I think it's just having like a bigger understanding of what my role should be from the high level, but then also having a little bit more flexibility for myself. And is it smooth all the time? No way. It is chaotic. It is exhausting sometimes. It is frustrating, but I'm also doing something that I love and making it work. And for that, I'm really, really grateful. And I couldn't do it without a whole bunch of different systems operating all simultaneously.
You exemplify the entrepreneur in so many different ways, by creating those systems, by being passionate about your business, by being able to balance work and life, by surrounding yourself with competent people who are also passionate about the cause, by communicating extraordinarily and facilitating the means of communication amongst other people. It's wonderful. It is your education served you well. But
Nora,
also,
can you just be like in my mirror every morning, just telling me these things that I wake up? Like, you exemplify entrepreneurship. Like, yeah, I do.
there you just, I'll provide the recording for you. You can just play it every day. You can put it in one of those picture frames at the mirror. You exemplify entrepreneurship. You are awesome. And you are awesome. And you are a fabulous inspiration. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with today?
I would just say, take time for yourself, be patient with yourself, do what you love. The best piece of advice I ever got was do what you love until you stop loving it and then stop doing it. And that has taken me far. So, and of course, if you're a travel lover, if you're a woman looking for sisterhood, come and join our wonderful community. We'd love to have you and love to welcome you and for you to come see us firsthand.
And I will definitely provide links to Wanderful in the description, along with the other myriad of places that you can be found online.
Excellent.
So, thank you so much for joining me today, Beth. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nora. Great to be here.
I'm Nora Dunn, otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I will catch you next time.